it's kind of segues perfectly to our next point. It's kind of that I don't want to say student indifference, but as you said, just getting fans in the stands, especially going forward, Stony Brook moving on, upgrading, just seeing those upgrades over the last 20, 25 years plus. Obviously, them leveling up, changing their name, their branding, now going to the CAA. And it's kind of the expectations, of fans and who's going to be attending, how many are going to be attending, what boost was Stony Brook going to get on the fan side from this. And Mike, I thought you contributed to a great story on it. Statesman published earlier this week. Ethan T was part of it as well. So kind of just talk about that and kind of your findings on the apathy you found so far and we see, and how you feel it could change or not change in the future.
Yeah. You see, even us in the sports section, Statesman sports section. I know the name of this show is also the sports section, but the section of the sports desk at the Statesman, even we were divided on this, really. We all agreed on the general sense. The general sense is Stony Brook has a good athletic program. Look at this team, look at that team, look at the other. Why is nobody going to these games? Because don't read the number that athletics posts on the website. Okay, I've been in those press boxes before. Let's be realistic. Sometimes they let the announcer hand pick a number. So
eeny meeny miny mo.
Yeah. I remember for a men's soccer game, the announcer, and it's Heath Cobb, who's part of this. He was like, you know what, tonight feels like a 767 night, and that was the official attendance number. So,
by the way, before you continue, I just want to remind everybody: WUSB Stony Brook, that is a sports section. Matt Mankiewich, Ken Fermin, Greg Taylor, Mike Anderson here until midnight. Keep going.
Okay, right. So the root of the issue is Stony Brook's got such a good sports program. We're no Clemson, we're no LSU, but we've got ourselves a good sports program. Why does nobody care? So we launched what I would jokingly call, tongue-in-cheek, I would call it a full-scale investigation. We went man on the streets. We put out polls. We got some good answers. We got some good quotes. And, the conclusion we came to is kids just don't care. Kids don't come to Stony Brook because of this stuff. Kids don't come to Stony Brook because they have a great baseball program. A lot of the kids on campus don't know that the women's lacrosse team is the 5th best in the nation, or 6th, depending on which, magazine you read.
And 4-time was number 1 a couple of years ago recently.
Right. And the baseball team has been to the World Series. Only college in New York that's done that, and the only college in the America East that's done that. Maine was in the College World Series before they got to the America East. Story for another day. But
I think St. John's did it in John Franco's time.
That might have been 1980, though.
It was. We were talking about almost 40 years ago. It's true.
Yeah. I think like within there was some
Frank
sort of
Viola's time, or both. Yeah, Frank Viola. Yeah, they had Frank Viola and John Franco. Tells you everything you need to know.
Frankie V, not Van Durka.
Yeah.
But
Van Durka won that game at LSU, though.
Oh, yes, he did. Game. Yeah, Kevin Gossman.
And then threw 2 no-hitters as a Seawolf. He was great.
That's right. And I spoke to his high school coach for Access, too. But Steve Costello. Anyway, so, these kids, I don't mean to use this word. It's got a negative connotation, but a lot of Stony Brook Seawolves, a lot of Seawolves and nerds. A lot of kids here. They're here to get a degree. They're here to study whatever it is. They're a bio major. They're an engineering major. They're with the School of Medicine. They're not here for the sports program.
That's a big point. You kind of got to stress too, because this article got a lot of traction. So I'm so glad we got you here. And that's kind of the
that's good. That got a lot of traction because somebody does care, obviously.
Right.
Yeah, a lot. And obviously, a lot of that is alumni and the locals. But I think, obviously, there's a big disconnect. And for people who are critical, I think, on the student base who don't go to Stony Brook or aren't at Stony Brook, is that maybe they're just locals. So maybe they've never even been to Stony Brook as a student. But it's that, I think, that disconnect where, as you said, for them, their focus is, as you said, very STEM oriented, STEM favored. Obviously, Stony Brook now being, a big school touted for the STEM programs by the New York governor.
Right. We're one of the top research universities in the world, but that's what we are. We're a research university.
But and on top of that too, for these folks too, and just being a former student, I know this and can back this up. What they've been interested in, in terms of things that don't involve school, it's esports and things of that nature. Video games like CS:GO, Overwatch, Rocket League. That's big. That's drawing in hundreds of current students from those fan bases, and the accessibility they get, watching it on streaming services or participating in it.
That's everywhere,
I think a big thing too.
Well, yeah. But is it judgmental of me that I just cringed though?
Well, I think that's the big thing too, is just that it's so much more easily accessible for them. And I think for them to be able to, contribute and play in sports like that, or feel like they could get that experience, we get watching a baseball team or lacrosse team dominate. They get those experiences watching the Rocket League club dominate. And it's no disrespect to them, but they're all great dudes, great folks there and working hard.
No, they're good kids. Nobody's bashing their
absolutely
character.
Not. And it's kind of, I think, that disconnect where, a lot of the locals, they'll support, a lot of the Stony Brook Athletics teams, but in terms of the student base, you're seeing the clubs get a lot of that backing, and clubs in terms of what's going on in the virtual world.
Yeah. Greg, you were going to say something, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've got a litany of things because I was both a player and a coach at Stony Brook as well, too. So I have kind of like a little bit of a different viewpoint. Here's where I'll go, and I got 4 or 5 things I can rattle off. Number one, as you moved from Division III to Division I, you've got less Long Island players.
Yeah, that's true.
And that is going to draw...
Always going to be the case, yeah.
But that's going to draw less people from the island coming to the game, right? Because your child's not playing, your friend's not playing, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, but in sheer numbers, attendance hasn't necessarily taken a dive. And as far as on-campus enthusiasm, back in the Division III era, I mean, you may have gone to see games. I'll give you a perfect example. Our own Kurt Hilton, who actually delivered a speech to the football team earlier this week. But he and a whole bunch of his friends in G-Quad had a bunch of friends on the basketball team. So they went to the games and supported their friends. So they had that at least. But we weren't filling the Pritchard Gym in the D3 era. We were filling it in the D1 era under Steve Peichel.
But it's not going to help us now. So I agree with what you're saying, but I thought it would be something that could help now. I think you're right that there is like the diversity of the campus is awesome. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I think it was a real I think it was a real eye opener for me.
It's one of the reasons why I came for sure. And I feel like for some folks they were critical on that and kind of wanted to see I think less of that. And I think that's wrong because besides taking away our opportunities, to me you're ruining, I think, something that makes Stony Brook really special, which is just, how many folks, different backgrounds can come and unite for things, like we said, like the athletics department,
But I think that feeds into the idea that, you so a lot of people on campus who don't even know what lacrosse is, period. They don't even, what I'm saying?
Well, we are Long Island. There aren't that many
people
who don't know what lacrosse is.
Yeah. So... But that's not even just Long Island though. But like international students not even knowing what basketball is or baseball is. Like that's just not something that they kind of grew up seeing. And I think that. So you look at the numbers on campus of 20,000 on campus, but so many of them are from such differing backgrounds, which you guys are right. It makes it such a fun campus to be on. It also kind of like it hampers that piece of it, right?
That's why they go to those STEM oriented clubs or those video game clubs because that's their familiarity, number one. And two, it's something to where what they're studying, what they're doing, it's geared more towards them. It's easy for us, as journalism majors to be attending and reporting these sports events because it's in our field, but it's a lot harder obviously for someone from a STEM background, and it's not impossible. We see Ethan T. He's one of those guys from that STEM background who is very involved in the sports departments, at least on Statesman. Well, so it goes to show that, there are people like that out there, but it's just a matter of getting more folks to do similar things to what Ethan and folks like him are doing right now.
Well, back in my day, okay, and Greg as well, before the journalism program started, which is 2006, if I recall correctly.
2006.
2006. Before 2006, with no journalism program, you had people working on Statesman, you had people working at WUSB, and who went on to media careers. Okay, they do exist, but they were rare. You didn't go to Stony Brook for that purpose. You kind of wound up in it for some other reason. That's exactly what happened to me, for example. But the point still remains is that, hey, Cameron Indoor Stadium has a whole bunch of engineering majors sitting in there. So one thing, if the biggest thing, I think, is consistency. And number one, well, look, one of the reasons why all these power conference schools are where they are is because their programs have existed for 100 years. Literally 100 years, dating back even to the 19th century, more than 100 years. But I'm just trying to think of Gonzaga would be an example with their men's basketball, but was Gonzaga known for in anything else? Of a school that is relatively new to the athletic scene, who has built a powerful program that gets national recognition.
Well, I don't know.
And I can't think of one.
I don't know how long any of these colleges have been around that I'm about to name, because I don't know if
Run a couple by me.
Matters, but don't you think every single student at Clemson knows who Trevor Lawrence was? Maybe Deshaun Watson, right? Don't you think they know who they are?
But football games are the social event of the week. I mean,
but Matt, hold on.
It's what you do.
The way that we did the man on the street was we went around the academic mall. We went through the Frank Melville Library. We were asking, who's Tykel Fields? Who's Elijah Olaniyi? Who's Evan Giordano? And we were getting swing and a miss, blank, don't know, shoulder shrug, walk away from us looking a little scared, like we were a homeless person on the street in New York City. I mean, like, we were getting just cheeks turned left and right. They didn't know who these people were. They're like, I don't know, never heard of him. Who is she? Like, no, he's a guy. Like, really, these things were happening. We don't market our athletes enough.
True. That is so true.
And that's another reason why our athletic program, there's a disconnect between our athletic program and our student body. Now, let's just, for the record, athletic program clearly not broken. Clearly not broken. Okay.
In terms of on-field performance, no, they're not.
No.
Yes, behind the scenes, that's different.
No, well, like behind the scenes, they're a relatively well-oiled machine. I wish they would let the Statesman do a little bit more interactivity with the athletes.
That is a major problem that goes back. I hate to say this, has been, and again, someone's going to hear this and someone's going to yell at me, and I don't care. This has happened since. I'm not blaming Sean Helbin for this, but I am saying it started to happen when he took over. Which means the people that came in with him started doing this. I think Rob D'Elia at the Athletic Communications Department would like to see that change, but it's got to be brought to his attention.
The couple different things that I wanted to jump in and add. I'm going to make two comments here. Matt, you were talking about a program that would have been like Stony Brook's that kind of built itself up. My reach is going to be Bowling Green. As a school that's gotten to a national profile. So I think we have to copy what they've done. Mike, you were talking about not knowing athletes, and I think this is where we're kind of like similar to Stanford. Because Andrew Luck got interviewed one time, and he was like, what's the strangest thing that happened to you at Stanford? He goes, I came home from a game against Cal. I walked into my dorm room at, midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, and my roommate was like, where have you been?
Oh, my God, that happened?
And he's lying. He's like, we had a game against Cal, and he's like, we lost or won or whatever it was, and he was just kind of like, there's kids at Stanford that just similar to Stony Brook. It's just like Ken, like you were saying, it's just not their thing.
And it's an academic school, and that's something.
There is such and yet there's another side of Stanford where that is their longest standing rivalry, Stanford and Cal, within the Pac-12.
Here's where I'm going to jump in, and Matt, I'm going to I do agree with you on this one. And Ken, you guys are saying this as well too. Like, we don't market our athletes well enough. We certainly don't. We got to highlight them more, and we got to highlight them more within the community. And I think this is just
more than just an Instagram highlight.
No,
video,
yeah.
You know?
And I think this is my perspective as well too on this one, is that there's not enough pressing of the flesh amongst the community. It's almost like the athletic department is like a separate entity.
Yeah.
Years ago, they were much better at this, and I think the athletes were out there, and you knew them. I'm not saying that it was at the level as you would, like everybody at Duke knowing everybody on the men's basketball team, and probably even the women's basketball team as well. At UConn, they definitely know both teams.
Right, I was at UConn.
They definitely know both teams.
Right.
But the athletic department, and again, I'm not naming names here because it's not necessarily resting in one person's lap, but they're an island.
Yeah,
and
I think what's happened
they are. Part of it is because during the transition to Division I, there are people who are old school in mentality at Stony Brook saying, we're going to end up like Alabama. Okay?
People still talking.
People still talk about like that. And we transitioned 20 years ago. Okay? More than 20 years ago.
Folks. Please.
It hasn't happened. We're not at that level. We're not
only did we transfer 20 years ago, we transferred and then ran the conference. So if it hasn't there's nothing more we could have done. We went to a World Series.
Right.
We got ourselves a top-ranked women's lacrosse team. We've been ranked in football. That's CAA, but still, we've had our moments. We went to an NCAA with both men's and women's basketball. If it hasn't happened yet,
it's not going to happen.
It's just kids are going to come here to study STEM.
You're always going to have those people, like we said with Andrew Luck in Stanford, where you're always going to have people who just or in their own world. But the athletic department here at Stony Brook, and you know what? I'll be willing to bet you could walk up to any administrator, whether it's Sean or Rob Emmerich or any of these people, will say, "Yeah, we haven't really marketed to the campus as well as we should have." And now, whatever reason they give, the simple solution is do it. Right. Make your athletes more. Look, going back to the previous administration under Jim Fiore, and Jim Fiore left under not so great circumstances. But that's another story. And we don't necessarily need to give Jim Fiore credit for it, but this is what we used to do right here on these WUSB airwaves. Number one, always had the coach, women's and men's, on post-game every game. Mm-hmm. We always had Chuck Priori, Steve Peichel, Matt Sink, or one of Matt Sink's assistants. Sometimes we had Matt Sink on the air. He was calling from the bus on the way home on a Sunday night. Okay? But every week, now Jeff Bernstein did a lot to make sure that happened, but we got the cooperation. We had a separate show on Monday nights that aired live from the bench called Seawolves Night Live, where we would interview an athlete or two. You'd go on for an hour, and sometimes get free food out of the deal too. But the whole point was that was every single week. And originally, the communications department said, "We'll set you up with the guests." Well, they got kind of busy, and we said, "We'll take care of it." So you know what I used to do, and this was on the advice of some of the coaches. I'd go to the captain of the team that I needed somebody from, and said, "Okay, let's set something up. I need you this week. I need Trankel next week." Go to Kevin Crowley, who is the captain of the lacrosse team, men's lacrosse team. "Okay, I need you this week. I need Bobby Trankel next week. I need Jordan McBride the week after." Then go to Pat Cantwell, who is the captain of the baseball team. "I need you. I need you. I need Jankowski. I need all these guys." Yeah, and I haven't seen it. By the way, I was at the Met game today. Missed Jankowski, but I will see him this week. Okay, so we'll probably get a taped interview sometime next week.
I don't mean to spoil it, but the Statesman, we are trying to do a 10-year anniversary piece on the World Series.
I
team.
will tell him, and he will get his full cooperation. I guarantee you.
I really want to air this grievance. This
Go
is
ahead.
not with you, Ken. This is when the basketball team signed that NIL deal, that was a big deal. First ever Long Island collegiate team to be fully sponsored. We've been trying, the Statesman with me as the author, we've been trying to write an NIL article for a whole month now. They have not responded to me, to Cam. They've all gone dark. Frankie, Tyke, all of them. Nil. They have not spoken to nil. Get it? NIL. Nil.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but really,
Well,
they
as a Statesman writer,
responded. So,
I will also add to that may be coming from even higher up in the athletic department. Not necessarily Maureen McInnes, the president, because she just got there.
When you have so many of these, dissenting forces, that are disrupting the opportunities and even potential opportunities to
Now-
these athletes marketing themselves and vice versa, them getting marketed.
But the
Now,
marketing is huge. Marketing, look, people make very nice, hefty salaries doing nothing but marketing. And
Right.
Stony Brook Athletics, look, I'm not there. If we ask administrators like Sean Helbert, like Rob Emmerich, or somebody like that, what are you doing with marketing? And you'll get chapter and verse. But the fact is, where are the results?
We see it, and it brings good numbers from definitely the locals, and for football, for homecoming, you see great numbers there.
But then you say, well, look at
right,
this.
but that's
look
just
at,
college. College, homecoming and college, everybody goes, but everybody goes to get
Exactly.
hammered. You know how many kids were in the parking lot, not at the game?
Few hundred.
Look. Do you guys want another good idea of how disinterested Stony Brook students are in sports, in our sports? Just guess right now on air, all of you. Pick a number of how many students write for the sports section at the Statesman.
6.
Okay, who guessed 6? Was that you, Ken?
I did. That was me.
Okay, Matt, Greg, you guess a number.
4.
Yeah. 3.
6.
6 is probably the answer because Ken knew it ahead of time. I have a feeling.
Matt, what's your guess?
He is
My
a third, so-
educated guess would be 4. Maybe you have a couple of outliers who contribute on occasion.
So here's why you're all right. So Ken, the gross number is 6. Greg, usually 3 show up to the meetings. Matt, 4 of us have written this semester. There you go. Yeah, I can't believe it, but you were all right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's
We
all you
gotta-
need.
We're on track to only have 3 next. By the way, shameless plug incoming. I've been elected the next editor for the Statesman Sports section.
up to you.
Come fall time.
Okay, that's good.
I'll be running that section.
And that's the other thing.
I'm on track to have 3 writers, including myself. Now,
even
granted,
within
I've had
student
some
media,
kids
though,
reach
and
out,
Cam
but-
and our own Cameron Boone will say this: Cam had to quit Statesman to join WSB full time, regular, and be an announcer for us.
Right.
Statesman's got these crazy arcane rules that date back to even before me
It's,
about
it's
their
not-
people not being part of other student media.
I don't think the Statesman cares anymore. That
I
might have
hope
been-
not. I hope
that
so.
might have been that might have been a time frame thing. But now you can't work for athletics and come on WUSB or do Statesman in athletics.
But
Now-
That's
and
it.
again,
That's probably an athletic department rule
yeah.
because
Right.
you'd be a plant. You'd be you wouldn't know necessarily what to report and what not to report. I can almost
No, it's true.
understand that
It is
because
true.
you know where the bones are buried. And if, as a student, you don't necessarily know where the boundaries are, so to speak. Perfect example, and this is just as a regular reporter, college versus pro. You don't necessarily get into private lives or other intimate details on college athletes. You're more respectful of privacy and even privacy within the team. Perfect example. Guy gets suspended for quote-unquote violation of team rules.
Right.
Okay? Translation, got caught smoking weed.
Typically.
That's it.
You know.
That's usually it. I mean, yes, are there other team rules he could have violated? Sure. What gets you suspended? Got caught smoking weed. But that's a little code, so to speak, that you don't necessarily put in Statesman. You'll leave it at that because you respect the student athlete's privacy. Now,
Sure.
but on the pro level, okay, Violation of drug policy gets publicized by the league.
Yeah. Right. It's public info at that point.
Yeah.
Greg, you were going to say something. I just want to hear what you had to say.
Yeah, I had two more comments, and one had to do with the athletes and one had to do with the students. And I think now what has occurred, because now there's this like divide between the athletes and the school, and then not really a divide. That's not really the right word. It's just like the disinterest. The athletes have become disinterested in being on campus. I don't know how many athletes live on campus anymore.
No, great point. I mean, a lot of them don't.
Large athletic schools, they have either athletic dorms or they have off-campus houses or frat houses. So, yes. and also, it has been a long-standing tradition at Stony Brook that a lot of football players would rent a house, the football house, so to speak. And that goes back to D3 era. I mean, Greg, you probably knew about the football house. I certainly did.
Well, I mean, that stuff was around when I was there, but it was. Now, here's the difference, though. And this was one of the things that was really, I don't want to say shock. It was shocking to me when I came and coached again, right? So we had a lacrosse house, certainly.
Oh, yeah.
Not even a question, right?
Yeah.
So, but here was the difference. It was just seniors. Now the freshmen live on campus and then that's it. They're gone after freshman year. So you don't have that connection with the athletes. So I think it's even harder for the athletic department. I think they have to work a little harder in that regard. And now here's the next thing, the new generation now. And it's not a knock. It's just a reality. Mm-hmm. They're less communal than the older generation.
Whoa, I'm offended.
But I think but it's true. Like the new generation is less communal.
Yeah, they play their video games. They communicate virtually. I mean, look at us right now. We're four people in 4 different locations putting on this show. I mean, look, COVID had a lot to do with that. And even though we're not necessarily afraid of giving each other COVID, we're using it as a convenience because this being Easter, I was visiting with my sister. I'm doing the show from my sister's house. But I can do that because the technology allows it, and getting you guys on through Zoom, the technology permits us to do that while doing other things. It's a convenience. But even then, it makes us a little bit less communal.
And here's my point, I think, and you just hit it at the end there, Matt. We're working with people who are less communal. So, in the article, Mike, they were talking about how they receive the emails and the tweets and
right. That's not
them. but it's not enough.
Yeah.
You actually have to get out and talk to the kids because that's what's going to get them to come in. And as hokey as some of the events could be that you would do, I think you still have to do them.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. And also, Greg, keep in mind too is the emails that athletics sends. I mean, they're competing with the career center and whatever job fairs are going on and like the journalism internship advisor, she always sends a mass email to all 300-ish of us, like they're not sending them that frequently and they're not sending them in bulk, so they're just competing with every other organization on this campus. WUSB too, they're so pretty much when you're not interested in any of those, when you're not getting pestered with emails like that, because if you're getting pestered, you're eventually going to check these out.
Or tune them out.
They're just archiving them all. They're hitting select, delete all. And
right.
Athletics is getting deleted alongside the career center and the student union and the parking affairs, whatever.
I hate to say this, but email is lazy.
Oh,
yeah.
It really is. It's a cop out.
In the conduct of your daily business at your job, that's one thing. I mean, you have to keep on top of your email. But when you're spamming people with this stuff, it's going in one ear and out the other.
Right.
Again, it's tough to try to get these people where, again, as we were talking about housing, it's tough to get, these folks in when, at most you maybe have 55% of your undergraduates in campus housing. For a school like UConn, you're at 70%. And it's been like that over the past 10 plus years, and just kind of wrap it up with our final thoughts. We can all definitely do our part, do more of it, obviously, to try to see an increase there. And just on the athletic side, I think just, as you said, those athletes, I think the biggest thing would be just those athletes reaching out. He said, kind of joining these popular clubs, really, establishing a relationship, individuals establishing relationships with other folks, maybe see an athlete or two at the video game club, and maybe they don't even have to necessarily play like hardcore like a game like Rocket League. But I think just establishing those friendships, you could definitely see it translate on the other side, where they started attending games more so they could see their friends, as opposed to, hey, there's that athlete who's a really good pitcher for the team, like Don Baldrick.
Many years ago. Yeah. Well, there's an athlete that does not get anywhere near as much promotion as he deserves.
Switch conversations there.
But one last thing I want to get into is, and this is just personal experience, but it does give you an idea of what we all can do as individuals who are involved with athletics. I'm walking into Pritchard Gym with the equipment bags, ready to set up for a basketball game against Vermont, okay, regular season, and a couple of guys asked me, because I'm carrying all this stuff, says, where are you going? I said, I'm going to the basketball game against Vermont. You guys should go check it out. Mm-hmm. I said, yeah, what about it? I said, Vermont is the top team in the America East, and we're neck and neck with them in the standings. This is a big game.
Right.
And they went with me.
Yeah. I think the Statesman did for just, I don't know, a couple of minutes. We had a podcast team. It's gone now. Our podcast editor was kind of asked to leave. Wasn't doing a very good job. But we had a little podcast team, and they asked me to host an inaugural Hoopla podcast. Hoopla is the Statesman's special issue at the beginning of every basketball season. We get to go on a little media frenzy with both basketball teams. And so I had Elijah Alani and Frankie Policelli on the Hoopla podcast.
Marketability.
There are a couple
being
of players
translated outside the hardcore fan base
on the baseball team who were absolute comedians, a couple of pitchers, and forgot their names. They'll come up before we go off the air. But they would do a little little video thing for the website, previewing every game from from a humorous point of view. And I said, guys, you got to do that for us.
Right.
So before every broadcast, I'd get them on, and just go down there with my voice recorder and they do a little thing for me. But but those are the things that lure people in and make these guys accessible. And not being a power conference school makes our people more accessible, because they're not that much removed from everybody else on campus, because they still have to make the grade academically. They still got to coexist with everyone. They still go to the bench and get wasted. They do their thing.
Right. And you don't have to pay an arm and a leg to see these games like you do for Duke or Kansas. It's pretty reasonable to watch someone like Don Baldrick go in and pitch honestly, like Jacob deGrom.
Dude, I watched her throw a no-hitter for free. And got to speak to her after.
Oh, you were there, right? The Baldrick's no-hitter, the Mercy Rule game?
Yes.
Last week? Okay.
Yeah.
I had a bunch of people sitting behind me. I'm broadcasting the game. Right. They get up and leave.
Yes, I know.
And I'm saying loudly, there's a no-hitter going on here. Where are you going?